Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to first check to make sure everybody can see and hear me because I cannot see or hear you. Can you give me a thumbs up or maybe through the comments, write something? Okay. Yes, we can. Excellent. Okay. Oh, perfectly. Thank you so much. Okay, wonderful. All right, well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brett Siders, and I'm an ELT education consultant. Some of you maybe have joined me last time at the beginning of June for our presentation there. This presentation will be a little bit different. Some of the things we'll be reviewing about, the online tips and how to maybe adjust your class or your activities from in classroom to online. But we're going to be looking at some new activities and also a new book with new teacher resources and new activities. Okay. All right. Move that down there so I can see. Well, just a little bit about myself. Of course, I think I said this last time. I don't know why I keep using this picture. It's a little bit out of date. I look nice and young there, so I need to change that. But my background is working with children's education for 18 years. I've worked with ESL and many other different fields, but with training teachers, I've been doing that for about the past 8 years. What's really influenced me in that is my educational background. I studied educational psychology, so to understand the deeper levels of learning and what it takes to actually learn. Currently, I'm working on a learning science master's degree, which is, if anybody's curious, I would really recommend looking for it because it's trying to train teachers to work within the 21st century in informal learning situations like we have now here online. This is what we call a non-traditional or an informal learning setting. Well, for this seminar, my goals are kind of the same as our last seminar. I want us to be better prepared to teach students online, so we'll look at different tips that will help that happen. I want to be able to adapt classroom activities for online. Pardon me for 1 second. Also, at the end, we're going to look at using e-learning tools to be able to teach your class. And specifically, we'll go into the different kind of e-learning tools that exist with OpenUp and the extensive teacher tools and teacher resources with that. But you know what? Like I said last time, and I'll probably keep repeating it, we are in a new age of learning. It's been slow in coming, but now because of this kind of global crisis, it's really kind of pushed us into this new environment. So, I said it before, we're moving from traditional learning in the classroom, learning in all the formal settings that we probably had as children ourselves. So we're now moving more into non-traditional learning. Also, people talk about it as moving from formal learning to informal learning. So a big question that I've gotten from a lot of teachers is, with online learning, how do we keep kids engaged? I'll probably just go through this. I'm sure you have some ideas. What I would love for you to do right now is let's take about 1 minute. I want to know, in your experience or in your opinion, what do you think we need to do to keep kids engaged online? So please take a minute, just give me some ideas. What do you think? What do we need to do? I'm looking forward to hearing your comments. Mm-hmm. Very good. Yeah, playing online games, doing drills, someone had said. Good. Just seeing if we have any more. All right. Some things that I have noticed is, like we said, playing games. Playing games, especially to practice the English. I'm sure we all, when we are learning another language, we're kind of forced into that repetition, memorization and regurgitation. And while I'm not a fan of that, it is proven that we do need to have a lot of practice with new vocabulary and new sentence structures. We need practice producing that. And it can get so boring, and that's why we need the games to help us find new ways to be able to do it. Ooh, I like it. Someone else had said, relate to life's real situations. Yeah, make it relevant for the students, whatever the activities are. And you as teachers, you know better than anybody how to do that for your students. Something I say, we've probably heard this for in the classroom, but I think online it's just as valuable to try to limit our teacher talk. I know this is a lecture, so I'll be doing lots of teacher talk. But with our classes, the best way to keep our kids engaged is give them the floor. Give them the microphone to be able to show their production. Now, as with our Open Up book, since it's really for much younger learners, beginner learners, I specifically say here, less teacher talk and more student production. Because it doesn't necessarily need to be them speaking, but just maybe showing comprehension, showing that they're understanding, and giving them those opportunities to do that. Someone else had said the last one, they said kind of have short activities, and I would agree with that, especially with our younger kids, who have short attention spans and just get easily distracted, especially in their home environment. That's why I always like to have lots of little short activities, and I kind of watch the screens, and if I see the students' eyes kind of moving away or getting distracted, I might use some attention grabbers, which we'll go into later. But many times I just know I need to kind of shift the activity and find a new activity to kind of recapture their attention. So I always say, whatever your lesson is, maybe have a couple activities just to the side, ready to put in whenever you need it. I'm going to actually suggest another thing that we're going to look at today. Why use drama to teach English? Many teachers have done this in the classroom using drama. There's many different ESL drama books that students and teachers use. Many of them are kind of like plays, maybe the tortoise and the hare, and they're plays with characters. But for our young learners, they really can't do that. They can't memorize a whole play and act that out. But there's still other elements of drama that really help with English development. And we use drama for ESL, or I have since I began teaching English, or English as a second language and English as a foreign language, because of these great skills it builds in the kids. Not only does it help them improve their language skills, but it helps them build confidence and self-expression, creativity and imagination. It teaches them collaboration, working with others. It'll be a little bit challenging now in the online world. Some of these don't apply as readily, but some still do. Real life language use. This is the one that really applies no matter if you're in the class or online. And the last one is learning by doing. And many of you might be familiar with experiential learning, right? We learn something by doing it, not just someone telling us about it. So we'll really probably focus on this one because, like I said, real life language use and building fluency skills, these activities, as when I have used them in my experience, they work, of course, in the classroom, but I've also found them to be effective online. Well, for today's agenda, for those of you who were with us last time, the topics might look the same, but our activities and details will be a little bit different. Like I said, we'll look at tips for online teaching, adapting activities for online, and using e-learning materials. So let's move. Tips for online learning and online teaching. These will be very familiar, but I should say familiar if you had seen the previous seminar. but I like to go over them again because it's really something that's unfamiliar to a lot of people because it's for a different kind of setting. And like I said, I've always said tips for online teaching, like we now as teachers have to kind of think like a movie or TV director. You know, you'll notice if you watch online, talk shows or anything like that that have been moved online, they take very, very careful care with whatever their background is. You know, do they have books? Do they have a standard color? And it's not just to make someone look good, right? I don't have the bookcase there to make me look smart, but I do want to make sure I have something behind there that doesn't distract the students, right? All they can see is this screen, what you have. So if you have moving stuff in the background or distracting pictures, you'll notice kids kind of just staring off and looking at your background and not focusing on you as the teacher. That goes true with lighting as well. I kind of have problems with lighting sometimes, and it can be a real distraction for the person on the other side. You know, if it's too bright behind you, kind of makes a shadow. If it's the lights in front of you, which is what you want, it kind of illuminates you and lights you up for your students to see. And as I look at my picture, I could probably use a little bit more light on my face to lighten it up. Another thing, camera angle. I don't know how many of you, the location that you teach in, but something to be consistent with is having an even camera angle. You know, we don't want to have the camera above us looking down, and we certainly don't want to be above the camera looking down because it's kind of intimidating when you're looking down at it. So we're also thinking not just as movie and TV directors, but also actors. To keep kids engaged, I keep going back to think of kids shows. No matter what country, no matter what culture, the teachers or actors in kids shows are so energetic, right? They have big expressions on their faces. They smile a lot. They do this very specifically, not just to look silly or ridiculous. They do it because they know it keeps kids' attention. Something as simple as smiling a lot can keep your kids engaged and focused on you. Body language and gestures. Probably as you notice, I use my hands a lot when I speak, but that really does communicate to your students as well. So we now kind of have to be aware of that and aware of how we are perceived on camera. The last one, this is huge for if you're a teacher, if you're going to go for a teaching position and you're doing a job interview. I have to constantly remind myself about it, but to not look at the picture of yourself or the other students, which maybe I've been doing, but to look directly at your camera, just that little dot. And as weird and uncomfortable maybe as it feels or unnatural, it's so important because it gives the person on the other side of the camera the feeling that you're really looking at them. And if you have a class of 5 to 15, that's incredibly important. Just by you looking at the camera, every one of your students feels you're looking at them. So eye contact is essential. All right, I mentioned before attention grabbers. I'm sure pretty much many of you are familiar with attention grabbers. It's just like we use them in the classroom. The teacher says something and the students automatically respond and they know. You don't have to shout, you don't have to scream, you just use your attention grabber and boom, you have their attention. I always have used visual cues sometimes for the students. You can have gestures or something included with it. The only thing really that's important is that the students know the response. So for whatever I say, the students know the response. So for attention grabbers, you maybe have seen teachers or maybe you've done this before. I know when I started teaching, I did it. If I wanted to get the attention of the students, if they're talking or getting distracted, you kind of result. You do that. You just shh, and maybe end up driving yourself crazy and the students crazy. And it's just not very effective. So some of the attention grabbers that I have liked to use, first the teacher says it, then the students say it. One is macaroni and cheese. So the teacher says macaroni and cheese and the students respond, everybody freeze. I like this one when I would do like lots of physical activities and the kids might be moving around the classroom and I just needed them to stop immediately. So I would say macaroni and cheese, they'd say everybody freeze. There's different ones you can do, hocus pocus, everybody focus. You know, I had a teacher who would do that. He would say hocus pocus, like he's doing a spell, and the kids would have to say everybody focus, and they would have to make eye contact with the teacher. A great way to get the kids' attention. This is a very common one. I've heard a lot. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Students respond. 1, 2, eyes on you. Most of the time, I'm not very clever or cute with my attention grabbers. I'm pretty simple. I'm 3, 2, 1, be quiet. And the students respond that way. And it works. And really, it doesn't matter what your attention grabber is. All it needs is the cue from the teacher, the response from the students. And it's very effective. Great in the classroom, great for online when you have, you know, at 5 to 15 students and you need to make sure you can get all their attention at once. So important thing, just model in the beginning and be consistent. I would recommend not switching between different attention grabbers. That will just confuse the students. All right, I mentioned last time using visual materials. You know, a lot of those activities we do in class, flashcards, or using props or realia, that's like objects that look like the real thing. You know, if I had, last time I showed a toy, a plastic fork, and, you know, a real fork. These are great things that you might be bringing into your classroom already or you did in the past, and still very effective online for teaching. And what makes it really nice is you're at home, so a lot of the household items around, you know, are usually often part of your target vocabulary, especially for the younger students. You know, things like kitchen utensils or things in the living room or bathroom utensils. So a lot of the things in your household can be used to help teach English. All right, visual cues. This I feel is very important. I used it in classes because I would have maybe English only classes and I couldn't use translation. But now, especially online, when you have tons of students all looking at you, maybe you can't speak to every one of them, to use visual cues instead of speaking or instead of translation. So I say, you know, use visual cues to help students understand your instructions instead of unnecessary teacher talk trying to explain it, right? One thing I always do is, you know, when I say it's like your turn, you know, if I say a question and I want them to answer, many times I'll do the finger on the ear, and almost internationally, no matter where I've been, everybody knows what that means. If someone puts the fingers on the ear, it means you need to talk. Try again, pretty common around different cultures. It doesn't matter what it is, whatever your visual cue is, as long as you're consistent with it and the students can understand it. Then it helps so limit all that unnecessary teacher talk. Okay, moving along, I'm gonna take a quick moment to see if I have any chats. Okay, perfect. TPR, another thing that we've done in the classroom maybe, and we definitely can do online. TPR, for those who are not familiar with it, it connects a visual action with your vocabulary words or phrases or sentences. So, you know, last time I had done eat, you know, for eat, when you teach it to a student, you do a gesture with it, or you do TPR, eat, eat, eat. One reason and why it's great for young learners is eventually, after I go, eat, eat, then eventually I'm going to be able to do this. Say nothing, and the student will be able to say eat. They'll know that this means eat, and they'll connect it to their life. And like I said, it doesn't need to just be vocab. You can do sentences or phrases, you know. I want to eat. Whatever you want, you can practice those sentences. We'll look at an activity later using TPR. But as I say, and you probably noticed me as a teacher, being physically active is truly the cornerstone to student engagement. In the classroom, if you're, if you've ever seen a teacher, or maybe you've been a teacher like this before in the past, if you're kind of sitting down all the time and not moving around, I find kids can get very distracted and not as engaged. Being physically active gets them to look at you. All right, this time I want to look at adapting activities for online. I'm going to look at a lot of drama-based activities that are very popular in ESL and that can also be adapted to use online in your digital classes. So you're probably familiar with this one. It's called the gesture game. It's like a pantomime game. It's fun and interactive. What I really like too is it requires students to practice both target question and target answer forms. So, for instance, if your target question form is, what is it? Then the target answer is, it is and whatever the target vocabulary is. This game allows every student multiple times to practice the question and practice the answer. And instead of me trying to explain it more, what I'd really like to do is use one of the teacher resources for Open Up. In Open Up, they have lots of different videos. I really like this because they're instructional videos. I noticed there's been kind of a change, which has been very helpful. In the past, a lot of the teacher resources and instructions were just all written. You kind of had to read it and think about it and visualize it to be able to understand it. Now, like with Open Up, all of those instructions are just a video. So you can see it clearly, you get good tips, and you don't have to spend a lot of time trying to understand what the activity is. So I'm going to show you actually the video for the game of gestures that is included with the Open Up teacher resources. Let's just take a minute and look at that.
Gesture guess. Using only gestures, students act out a word. Other students guess what it is. What is it?
I know.
Yes.
I know. It's a chair.
That's right. 6.
What is it? Oh, I know. It's a book. That's right.
6.
What is it?
I know.
Yes,
It's a backpack.
that's right. Top tip. When you play the game, you should encourage your students to ask, what is it, before acting out. This will help to avoid confusion and make sure that they have the chance to ask the question before the other students guess. Good luck.
I love that. What was that? 1 minute, and now we all know how to play that game, right? That's why I love these kind of instruction videos instead of instructions that are written. So as you saw in that game, that great gestures game, they just go around and around. You can do it all together as a class or break students up into little groups. You can do this online if you would like. I would say for the first time online to do it all together. And it's just giving each person the chance to do the question and the answer. The only technical difficulty you may have is you as the host, the teacher of the, I'm assuming maybe you're using Zoom as a platform, you have to control the microphone for each student of when they can and can't talk. So that's just something you'll have to kind of control as you go through it. But again, it's an activity that can give so many kids the opportunity for question and answer. And every time I've done this in every country that I've taught, all kids love that, the gesture game of pretending you have something. They love it. And again, I think I'm repeating this for the 4th time. That target question, that target answer, they say multiple times, but they're having fun while they do it. Another big thing, I had mentioned at the beginning about how with drama-based activities, one of the great resources or the great benefits from it is the effect it has on our fluency. Now, many of us don't think about this, but we actually need fluency building activities so we can sound or have reduced accent and increased native-like speaking. So as I say, fluency building activities, it helps students improve their fluency and pronunciation. And the really important part, it helps students have a more natural tone. Tone is kind of the attitude or emotion, how someone sounds. And the intonation, that's the rise and fall of the voice. Why I am so big on this, and I'll probably repeat it over and over for you until you're really annoyed and say, Brett, please stop talking about it. It's because, again, as I've had the privilege to be able to travel around the world and teach in different areas, I've noticed everybody in their second language, English, no matter what the second language is, it never sounds as natural as their first language. And I always thought, why? I'll see these people when it was for English, speaking English in a very kind of monotone voice, good grammar, knowledgeable vocab, but just kind of a flat tone. Now, when I heard them switch and speak their native language, you heard emotion, you heard tone and intonation. I kept saying, why? Why when we are practicing or learning a second language do we not have that? Well, and I think that's because it's how we are teaching a lot of the speaking practice. So, for instance, one thing we can do to improve students' fluency and their pronunciation and try to get that more natural tone in their voice is different activities. One, I'd say like this one, pass the word. A lot of these, they're drum activities. They can be very silly. Kids do love them, especially the younger kids. But for example, our first activity is called pass the word. How many ways can one word be said? So in this online activity, you would give a word. Let's just say, please. The word is please. Now, you could start and then give each student an opportunity to say the word in a different way. The only rule is they can't sound the same as the last person. So, I joke, if it's please, when you say it when it's loud, please, quiet, please, happy, please, sad, please. It's silly, it looks ridiculous, which is fun for the kids, but what they don't realize that they're doing is they're practicing changing their tone and intonation. That practice helps them eventually get a more natural speaking with their second language. Oh, thank you. Again, another activity I've gone over a little bit before. Oh, pardon me for a second. Is emotional speaking. And this is actually the core of the drama activity, because really that's what we want with our students. We want to hear that second language sound just like that first language or just about, and really what's the difference? It's emotion. It's emotion in the voice. We all have that when we speak our native language. It doesn't matter where in the world you are or what language you speak. We all speak with deep emotion in our native language. So it's something we never practiced. We didn't realize as young kids we were practicing that. Even in our infancy, we heard adults speaking with emotion and then we practice it. But when we learn a second language, it's not. We're in a classroom. It's kind of, rote memorization. So we need some activities to help give more inflection into the voices. So we're not going to do it all together now, unfortunately, but this activity, it's hilarious. The students will be laughing, and even online they'll enjoy it. But you give again any word. Thank you. I think that's one the students love to hear. Thank you. So how does it sound when you're happy? Thank you. What about excited? Thank you. That's very big for me. I always want to show the kids the differences between those adjectives. You know, there's happy, and then there's excited. There's sad, and then there's depressed. To have them practice the difference in tone between those two words. You know, angry and furious and nervous. How does that sound? How do our voices change when we do that? The key thing is just keep the same word. Like I said, please or thank you. Kids love thank you because imagine what it sounds when you're angry. Thank you. Or if you're nervous, thank you. Very silly for the kids, but they're practicing changing their voice. Now, if you do have older students who are able to do a little bit more, like actually in here, I say practice the dialogue. Because you could have, for instance, here's from The Ugly Duckling. If your students are capable of reading dialogue, you know, you could have this. It says, don't worry, little one, everything will be fine. And the Ugly Duckling says, you are very kind, Mr. Owl. Now what we start doing with the kids is give them different emotions. What does it sound like when the owl is happy? Don't worry, little one, everything will be fine. What about if the owl's angry? Don't worry, little one, everything will be fine. Now, this has two valuable benefits for students. One is it's silly and it keeps them engaged. But two, and this is, I'm gonna guess, probably true for every language on earth, that by changing your tone, you change the meaning, right? If I say, don't worry, little one, everything will be fine. That means one thing. But let's say I'm furious. Don't worry, little one, everything will be fine. The meaning behind it changes a little bit. So these are great activities to teach kids, to let them become aware that it's not just what you say, but it's how you say it. That affects the message. Students do need to learn this, and I think they can start learning it at a young age. If your students are old enough, I would recommend character speaking. You know, read the dialogue. Instead of emotions, think of different characters. Now, kids with their tons of different cartoon shows now that they have access to, I'm sure there's lots of different characters they could see. But, you know, some of the traditional ones, you know, a scary witch, what does that sound like? A brave superhero, or one student, I thought it was hilarious. I said, sports player. I wanted just like, what does a sports player sound like? How would they say this? And he went all of a sudden, he was breathing like, don't worry, little one, everything will be fine. Because for him, the sports players were always out of breath. He was a very big soccer fan. So it was so fun to see what the students could create and come up with. And again, they're practicing changing their tone and intonation. Great for fluency building. So again, you could do it with dialogues, or if they're really young, maybe just try one word or like a short phrase. Another activity that I've really liked because it teaches so much, and you can use TPR with it, is using the senses. It's a very fun, it's another interactive way to practice target vocabulary. For instance, what we do is, if you're gonna say, like, focus on one of the senses, let's say for touch, you give the verbal cue, and this could come from maybe your target vocabulary or past vocabulary. Let's say you've practiced adjectives like hot, and maybe you practice nouns like stove. You could tell them, oh, you're gonna touch something. You're gonna touch a hot stove. Now, when I have done this activity, and especially if I would do it online, I would not show them what to do. Not like, because that's kind of giving them the answer. This is a great comprehension check. When I say, oh, you touch a hot stove, what happens? What happens? Then I will look through the camera. I want to look at all my students, and the students I see go, ooh, you know, all students know it. Or, you know, I had a kindergarten student one time do this, and they know it. But they'll only be able to respond with the action if their listening comprehension is at par, if they know what you're saying. You know, again, touch, you touch ice. What's that like? Ooh, Ooh, ooh. Sticky gum. I mean, there's so many different examples that you can do, and not just with touch, taste. You taste a lemon. So here, like, let's say my vocab was lemon. Well, I don't want them to just know what that word is. I want them to really feel it. I want them to engage their senses. You eat a lemon. I don't want to see a kid do this. No, what happens when we eat a lemon? They're sour. I encourage kids to do that because they're really then connecting deep memory with this new word in a new language. Other things, ice cream, spicy peppers, we all kind of know what happens when we have these, if we touch them or we taste them, or smell, you smell fresh bread, you smell flowers, ooh, you smell a skunk. These are all very, very good comprehension checks. All of this, like right here, I see, for like sticky gum, if you're practicing gum, or adjective of sticky, fresh, if you're practicing what does fresh bread, it's not just bread, it's fresh bread. Great ways to check listening comprehension. Also, of course, songs and chants. I feel I must fully confess, when I was a classroom teacher, I won't say hate, but did not like songs and chants. And to be honest with you, it's because I cannot sing. My voice sounds terrible if I try to sing. The kids look at me and close their ears. So they let me know that I cannot sing. But I couldn't help notice that every time I put the songs and chants on, the kids almost like zombies, just staring at it, and all of a sudden slowly mouthing the songs or the chants, started, if you have a visual, like if there's a song and dance with it, I just noticed the kids start copying the moves. It's just something that connects really well to young children, songs and chants. So when I came to online teaching, I just had to get rid of that, my old thinking about what songs and chants were, because I knew, even though I didn't really like doing them myself, they were incredibly effective for students. It really engages them well. Another example, kind of looking at open up resources, is they have, I think, not only just the song with like animation, which is good, you practice hearing it, but I like when there's kind of dances and actions to it, because for my very young learners, like I have some kindergarteners, like I said before, they kind of become mesmerized, and almost without realizing it, they start just copying the different gestures. I'll play a little bit of this. They're silly, right? These songs and dances are not for adults, they're for little kids. So we need to keep that in mind.
What is it? A pen, it's a pen. What is it? A notebook, it's a notebook.
Just a little sample there. So you see great different gestures that will keep the kids engaged. I would recommend probably though with my students, when I did a song and chant, I just kept them in their chair. So they didn't do any of the lower body activities, just the arms and the face and the head. But very good for practicing the sentence structure, as you heard, what is it? What is it? And then the vocab, it's a pen, it's a pen. Very good practice. Oh, last, is Pictionary. I talked about drawing pictures before. I'm sure some of you have used this in your classroom, but I love Pictionary because initially, and what I noticed most teachers using for Pictionary is just teaching vocab. You can, draw a dog, and what is it? It's a dog. Very good. But there's so many other opportunities. You can actually start practicing sentence structure. I would use it a lot for when I had to teach grammar. For instance, if it's present continuous, ing, he is walking. The students would draw a person, and all the students knew, because we'd been practicing our different verbs in present continuous. But then when they drew the pictures, they knew they had to say it in a sentence, and it's with ing. Oh, he is running. She is sleeping. He is walking. And that's just present continuous. You can use them for simple past. You draw a picture and you tell the students, what did he or she or they do yesterday? They ate ice cream, they walked, whatever. But I noticed you could actually start using Pictionary for different grammar structures. And I really, really would encourage that. Instead of me talking more about it, I would like to show another cool feature with the Open Up resources where they use Pictionary in a little bit different way that I like. Let's take about 1 minute to look at that.
Pictionary. Have one student draw a picture on the board and ask, what is it? Other students guess.
Are you ready? Yes. Okay. I'm thinking of something. What is it?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay. What is it?
I know.
Yes?
It's a balloon.
No.
Oh.
Try again.
I'm going to pause it there. I think we got the general idea, but they just highlighted something that I love about Pictionary. One of my big things about Pictionary is I don't ever want the students to get the answer immediately. I want them to have to guess a lot. You know, they used a different sentence structure, but something I would do is where the students had to ask the question. Is it a dog? Yes, it is. No, it isn't. I loved it when it was no, it isn't, because then that meant they have to keep on asking different questions. This is one of those activities that will just create so many speaking opportunities. Something I like that the teacher had done in this video is she did the picture piecemeal, you know, drew a little bit and then gave the students an opportunity to ask the questions or give an answer. That's what I would say the big takeaway from Pictionary is. You don't want them to get the answer immediately, because then the speaking's done, right? And it goes to the next student. Let them think and ponder and keep asking questions. Yes, it is. And then the answer, yes, it is. No, it isn't. Very fun activity for the kids. The last activity, I'm not going to go into any of the in detail activities. We had done that in a previous seminar. But I have to say, you know, interactive flashcard activities, pretty much, or I would say most flashcard activities that you can use and do in the classroom, you can also do online. And I'd really encourage you to kind of go and search for different flashcard activities or review the seminar from June that where we covered a few different ones. So we're going to finish off this webinar looking at some e-learning materials. Now, even for me, Open Up is a new series, and so I wasn't as familiar with the e-learning materials. It's kind of amazing what like publishers are doing now, like all the stuff that's in there. And again, I have to confess to this. When I was a classroom teacher, I really never used a lot of those e-learning or digital materials. That's kind of more of a in-person or a teacher using physical props and realia. I still do that online, but now online, like it'd be very hard to have a class, especially with young learners, without using your kind of e-learning digital materials. So ones we're going to look at are like the teacher tools. The tools that actually you can use to teach the class. We'll look at some teacher resources, which are more about how to use it. Like, so how to use the book, in this case, Open Up. And then also the student resources, the online ebook. And if you didn't know, and I love to repeat myself, I'm going to repeat myself one more time. But again, in the past, I know I did, maybe some of you did as well. I thought of these materials as extra or supplementary. But now with online teaching, I kind of feel they're more of a necessity. They're a crucial part of my lessons. What I would like to do is I'm going to click out of this, and I just want to take you right to it. So pardon me, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And I first would like to show you the student resources, what the students have available to them. And now, because of the current pandemic and a lot of people have trapped at home, I know the publisher has put this online for free use for the students. When you get into it, you know, this pretty much for the students, it's a digital book. It is the ebook. All the materials that they have in their physical book comes here in their digital book. So something that they can use if they need it. For the teachers, I think, I was pretty impressed with what Open Up had for teachers. I would like to show you, if I may, again, I will stop sharing. I know it's not very pretty, but this is actually what you're looking at right now is one of the files for the teacher's tools. And I think it's like, the only thing I kind of get caught up with is now that there's so much in there and they kind of use coded names and stuff, it's a little confusing sometimes because there's so much information that they're giving us. But what we have here, I will go back, is this, let's say, is for all the teacher tools for one book. So you say OU1, that's Open Up Book 1. And then there's Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, 4, 5, to Unit 8. Now I'm going to start with Unit 1. I'll click in there. Now each unit has several different files in it. You have your audio files, which contain all the songs and the music that you need. The lesson plans. This is the great teacher tool. All in PDF form, the lesson plans that you can either use, you can use for yourself, because with the classroom, if you don't want to use the digital book, there's also this, as you can see, the PPT tool. And we'll look at that just in a second. I mean, you can actually use that as a PPT if you use PPTs to teach your students. And it's a great way to structure it. And it's nice because it's just not a complete duplicate of the book. There's some new pictures and new things, so it's something that students haven't seen before. Video, I'll click in video. As you can see, here's that gestures guest, that one video that I had showed you previously about the gestures game. They are all in here. These are all videos for you as a teacher, either to understand the material or to show your students. See, for instance, here's the song and dance that we also saw. What is it? What is it? It's a pen. There's also a storybook, which a lot of these have. Of course, because this is for younger kids, you know, there's a starter, I think level 1 and level 2. The stories are far more simplistic. But again, I would say those stories are great materials for practicing that emotional or fluency-based activities. Great for that. Okay. Last thing, pardon me, I'll show one more thing. I would like to show you, if I can find it. There you go. This is in PDF form. It's just a little bit easier to show you, but it is also in PPT form if you'd want to use that for online teaching, which would be a great tool for you. But it just kind of goes through. And as you can see here, all of this material on the PPT, it's not in the book. This is all extra material for you. Paper Puppet, more activities, actually has the materials if you, in the PDF form, that's why you get both the PPT and the PDF form, because with the PDF, you can just like print it out and cut all the materials and you have it. It's just all there for you. So as you can see, a lot of these are just extra materials that you can play, and all the videos and the songs are embedded into the PPTs. So really good help. I know a lot of publishers have put PPTs, and I never ever used one until just this year because I needed to for online teaching, and it really, really helped my class better. And it was nice that I didn't have to make the PPT, someone else did. So very, very helpful. Pardon me for a second. I'm going to move back. So we looked at a lot of those different teacher tools, the tools that they're actually things that you can use to teach the class. The teacher resources, we're kind of running out of time. I didn't get into those, but what they are is just instruction manuals with not only text, but also pictures on how to use Open Up and get the most out of it. So those are great things that come to you, I think, if you get the Open Up book. Again, the online ebook for the students, it's up to you. You also have access to that if you wanted to use the ebook. I've done that a few times where I've used an ebook to direct and teach my class, but now I find myself, I enjoy using those PPTs a lot more. All right. Well, this kind of brings us to the end of the seminar. I hope you had kind of some new information in there. What I would like to do now, I apologize because I had not stated it before and I feel really bad, but in this webinar, we have, you might see your tab for Q&A, not the chat, but Q&A. I would love for it if you have questions that you want to ask me about how tips for teaching online or the drama activities or for the digital resources. Please feel free to type that in to the question for Q&A and I will get to those questions in order. The first question I had, it says, may I ask where we can get these online books? The online books are available. The publisher Language World has put all of those online due to the current pandemic and people's kind of limited access to different resources. So all of those are online free. And I will also put in that email address, or I believe Language World is with me and they might send that email address. Okay. I see some other questions there. So I'm going to stay on because, you know, we are together till for one full hour. We have about 7 more minutes. So if you have any more questions about these materials, I would love to take the opportunity to help you with those. I might be silent here as I'm reading the different questions. I apologize. Ooh. Everyone's very quiet today. No questions? How about, I would like to hear your responses. What do you feel about those drama activities? Do you see them and say, ooh, they're useful, or I don't know how to do that. I'm not a drama person. What are your feelings on drama-based activities? I would love to hear your feedback. As maybe you're thinking of questions, I would like to say that the great thing about the drama activities is you don't need to be a great actor. You don't need to be a drama teacher or even a student of drama to be able to do these. These are really just activities that came from drama, and with young learners, they've been used with developing second language skills. And I think they're fabulous because, again, to repeat myself, it gets the kids repetition, practice in the language many, many times, but in a fun way so they don't eventually just get bored and stop trying. Yes, exactly. Yeah, the students are drilling. That's what it is, really a drill. But the students just don't feel that. They just feel they're playing around. Oh, I get to say this word many different times in a funny face. How fun. But no, you're drilling, practicing it over and over. That's what's really happening. So it's great for them. Yeah, someone said necessary for doing activities motivating the English class. Absolutely. I mean, I try to think of everything. Like I've said, you know, even you being energetic, smiling a lot, we have to put a lot more in to keep these kids engaged. You know, when I always think, I notice that as a teacher, it's really hard to get the kids' attention. You know, I was so used to in the classroom giving the teacher eye. Do you know that, the teacher eye, where someone's talking and you don't have to say their name. You just look at them. Not mean, not nasty, but that look, that teacher look. When we were kids, we got it from teachers too. And they quiet down, they straighten up. Well, it's a little bit hard to do online, so we have to find new ways to kind of keep them focused. Here. Pardon me, I see some other great questions. Someone asked, do I have more activities for attention grabbers? I would recommend, go online and truly Google attention grabbers. If you want more zany, crazy ones, they're on there. But usually it's pretty simple. You could even make one up yourself. It's just you have the stimulus, you say something, and their response. That's all you need. That's all you need. Again, you can use kind of visual cues. Like I said, one teacher, it was like the class was studying Harry Potter, and she would, wave a wand, hocus focus, and a hocus pocus, and the kids always knew, and they did this with their hands. Everybody focus. So it's up to you. It's up to you. Someone asked about the dialogues, the practicing the dialogues. This really depends on your student's level. I would say, let's say you're using the Open Up Starter. So it's students who are maybe have practiced some phonics. They have phonics and alphabet knowledge and some phonemic awareness, but this is their first book. No dialogues, just the vocab, practice with the vocab. But maybe if they're a little older, they're using like Open Up 1 or 2, or even a different book, depending on their age. I would definitely practice the dialogues. And most important, to get the repetition, in the example of the ugly duckling, there was the owl. There's two characters, the owl and the ugly duckling. What the students love, I've literally practiced that dialogue with a group of 20 students and in partners, right? So there was 10 pairs. Each of them went up in front of the class and performed that same dialogue, that same one you saw, and yet no one got bored because I paired different emotions. The owl was happy, and the ugly duckling was sad. And then with another group, one character was angry and the other one was nervous. And just seeing the different dynamics, and what it really showed the kids is like, wow, when you change the emotion or you change the tone, it really changes the meaning of everything. And that's, I think, crucial for in the beginning steps of learning a second language. Someone said, can I apply the emotions activity to those dialogues? Yeah, that's the number one thing I do. Because the characters are fun, or, the different ways to say something, saying a word if you're coughing or sneezing, that's fun. But teaching kids the emotions, that's really where you get the fluency building. And that's where you get the improvement in pronunciation. Let me see. Oh, I apologize. I'm not typing an answer right now. I'm just giving these verbally. I hope that's okay. Well, I'm glad I could help you. Again, even if you have, no matter what your background as a teacher is, I would really recommend trying to incorporate some of these drama activities. So, and I will say, if you go online, you'll find so many that you can do actually in the classroom, but there's still a significant amount that are effective online. So I really recommend those. I'm going to give maybe one more minute to see if we have any more questions. This is what teachers call wait time. Oh, here we go. Very good question. The question that was given to us is, how can we be sure that there's a transfer of learning to a group of students, let's say 20 students in an online class? This is where I get big on the comprehension checks, especially for my young learners. For example, using the TPR, what did I say? Eat, eat, eat. Let's say we've practiced that a lot. Then what I do is I turn back, and let's say I say what I would do for my students, because if I have 20 students, I can't hear all of them. It would be just chaos of noise. What I do then is I would say, eat. And then I will look for the students to do the gesture. Are they able to connect the right gesture with the correct vocabulary? Because then that displays comprehension. It shows that they're understanding what that means. The challenges, I would say, when you have 20 students is to have verbal production, to get your students speaking. That, I think, you have to be far more selective in. I hope that answered your question. Thank you very much, Christian. That was a great question. Okay. Well, doesn't, I'm going to check just in the chat to make sure there's no more. Okay. All right, it looks like the questions have kind of died down. So thank you very much for all those questions. That was really, really good. I could tell you're really focusing and thinking about this. I think your students are probably lucky to have inquisitive teachers like you. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're able to get something out of this. I think what I just want to leave you with is that, you know, we have to kind of explore new ways to engage students. I talked about doing that with different, you know, thinking like an actor and how to be active and stuff to keep the kids' attention on you. But then also how we can incorporate different kind of interactive games, drama games, to get the kids not only practicing the language multiple times, but also enjoying it and having fun while they do it. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, I know the representatives from Language World will be able to help you with those. I'm not kind of the technical person. They would be much better at answering those questions. So thank you very much for joining. I hope everybody stays healthy, stays happy, stays safe, and good luck to you and your exploration and teaching. Thank you very much. Bye.